We're going to go ahead and get our meeting started, and I'd like to welcome all the staff and guests that are here this morning. Appreciate your coming on a beautiful Friday morning here in Kirksville, Missouri to join us on the Missouri Conservation Commission board meeting. And as we get started this morning, I'm going to turn it over to our director, Sarah Parker-Pauley, to give us a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. It is fantastic to be with you in Kirksville at the headquarters for our Northeast region. And really want to send out some thanks to staff in the Northeast region, to Danny Hartwig, our regional administrator, and his team for a fantastic field trip yesterday at Union Ridge. Just a great opportunity to get out and see the great work that's being done on our conservation areas, the great habitat work that's being done. Certainly understand why that's a popular turkey hunting area. So congratulations, Danny, to you and your team. Thank you for that. So as always, members of the Commission, just a few updates since we last met. I will tell you that the highlight for me, and I know for my deputies, has been traveling across the state to visit with our district supervisors and their district coordination teams. Each tour has been very different. The teams have done an exceptional job at showing their unique districts, and we have so enjoyed not only seeing our colleagues throughout the state, but meeting new staff. We have some real talent that's joined our team, and it's just been fantastic to get out in the field with them. And we've got a number of other DCT visits coming up. Look very forward to those. Also want to take a moment to thank all of our MDC staff that worked the state fair this year. I was able to stop by with Commissioner Orscheln, and we had a fantastic time visiting with staff and members of the public who were enjoying all of the conservation activities at our building. So a huge thank you for our staff who took the time, just amid very busy schedules, to go up and really connect with our citizenry in a very unique experience. So I hope you can read this. I'll tell you what, we have continued to have team members out fighting wildfires for other states and really helping out citizens in neighboring states and in our western states. Wildfire conditions have certainly improved here in Missouri. Several states, as we continue to hear in the news, are still experiencing wildfires. And one such team from the Missouri-Iowa Interagency Coordination Center, known as MOCC3, was assigned to initial attack duties in Texas. They were assigned to night shift for several days on end actually, which meant that they ended up, actually got to spend a few hours in hotels, and you can just imagine with that MDC logo on, Texans in that area knew exactly what they were there to do. And so this was just a really sweet letter of one woman on behalf of her family, just thanking our MDC folks for helping out Texas in a time of need. Very special. Speaking of staff excelling, I wanted to share a quick note from a recent Discover Nature Schools Revealed training. Staff recently conducted a training for St. Louis Public Schools at Vashon High School about using Discover Nature Schools curriculum, our brand new curriculum that we've told you about. On hand was the Director of Early Childhood Education for the St. Louis Public School System, Dr. Samantha March. Dr. March was elated with the training and mentioned the conservation education team had been fantastic to work with, and that she was incredibly impressed with the workshop that we put on. She said several of her staff shared that they were blown away by this new curriculum and of their intention to use that curriculum. So a shout out to our education staff. I've, of course, done something to, let me try it again. Yep, sorry guys. Here we go. So, in fact, Deputy Director Jeffries is on a call right now related to RAWA as we await Congress to return from the recess, we have been working on the RAWA front, and we've had multiple opportunities to talk to our amazing bill sponsor, Senator Roy Blunt. In fact, we met with Senator Blunt and Lieutenant Governor Kehoe at the State Fair to discuss the importance of getting RAWA accomplished. I just continue to cross fingers that the time is near that we'll finally see this historic legislation passed. And speaking of Senator Blunt and RAWA, I also want to personally thank staff from the Southeast region for their excellent tour that was given to Senator Blunt at Current River Conservation Area. Senator Blunt's staff reached out to Deputy Director Jeffries and asked if we had anything that we could show the senator in Reynolds County as they were passing through. Regional Administrator Matt Boyer, District Supervisor Steve Orchard, and Shelby Tim, who's one of our scientists, pulled together a tour of the area and showed Senator Blunt the excellent work that we are doing there. And in fact, it was a great opportunity for the senator to ask specific questions of staff. How will you use RAWA funds when it passes? And Shelby and others did a fantastic job explaining the importance of that funding and what they could accomplish with it. So the 10,000th Hellbender released. I think if you've seen the news at all the last few weeks, you've seen the announcement of this. The Hellbender is just one example of how Recovering America's Wildlife Act will benefit species of conservation concern in Missouri. Now, in the early 1990s, the department realized hellbenders were in danger of disappearing. Our initial research showed that the amphibians had about a 95% chance of going extinct in Missouri in the next 70 to 75 years. Not much of a chance. But since 2008, the department and the St. Louis Zoo have been working to recover the Ozark and Eastern hellbenders. Since then, roughly 9,000 Ozark hellbenders and about 1,200 Eastern hellbenders, including first and second generation St. Louis Zoo bred animals, have been reintroduced in Missouri. In August, the department and the St. Louis Zoo successfully released the 10,000th salamander back into an Ozark stream, where it was collected as an egg in 2018 and then hatched and raised at the zoo. So a huge congratulations to the St. Louis Zoo and our very own herpetologist, Jeff Brigler. I'm not doing a very good job with my slides, so everybody just hang on. Let's do this one. We had a great celebration in the last month of announcing archery as the new official state sport for Missouri. And we celebrated with members of industry and other partners regarding archery becoming Missouri's official state sport. We gathered with dozens of supporters and partners, including the Archery Trade Association and 4-H and MONAS, both students and teachers. And of course, held the ceremony at the Archery Hall of Fame. So it was a grand celebration. Okay, just a few more updates. The American Wildlife Conservation Partners, Aaron and I joined the American Wildlife Conservation Partners for a meeting a few weeks ago in Branson. AWCP is a consortium of over 50 organizations that represent the interests of America's millions of dedicated hunter conservationists, professional wildlife and natural resource managers, outdoor recreationists, conservation educators, and more. Of course, we talked about Recovering America's Wildlife Act, conservation efforts in Missouri, and how we bring together industry interests and conservation interests to put quality conservation work on the ground. We were joined there by Johnny Morris and his wife Jeannie as they were recognized by this prestigious conservation organization. Midwest Landscape Initiative. Last week, the Missouri Department of Conservation hosted the Midwest Landscape Initiative. One of these days, I'm going to figure this out. We hosted it at the Shaw Nature Reserve. The Midwest Landscape Initiative is an effort of states within the Midwestern state, Midwestern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and we're focused on landscape level conservation. So they got a fantastic tour at Shaw Nature Reserve. We so appreciate Commissioner Eckelkamp joining us for dinner and part of the celebration. But we spent the better part of a day talking about our shared interests across our jurisdictional boundaries. Now, we always give you an update on our new agent trainees, and they're just 4 weeks away from their graduation on October 4th. They have achieved several milestones lately. The most important is that they passed their wildlife code exam. The trainees spend a good majority of the academy studying the code and learning how to navigate through the regulations, which are not easy. It culminated in a 50-plus question exam that usually takes between 6 and 7 hours. I'm not sure I could pass it. In fact, I'm sure I couldn't. So congratulations to all of our trainees as they continue to complete their vehicle stop training, DWI investigation, defensive tactics scenario, just a host of trainings. And so we're very excited for their graduation in October. I don't have to tell certain members of this commission what this season brings. I'm looking at one in particular. September 1st marked the first of many fall hunting seasons here in Missouri. Dove hunters took the field last week across the state. It was fun to join dove hunters at James A. Reed Conservation Area for the hunt there. We had people from surrounding states. We had new-time dove hunters. We had people who had hunted there for the last 40 years. It was very, very special. Of course, archery season is about to pick up as well. It is just a good time to be outdoors. There we go. Work continues on the department's R3 efforts. In FY22, relevancy staff conducted a total of 10 email marketing campaigns focused on retention. 4 of the campaigns were sent to over 755,000 email recipients and really responded in a great response from those permit holders and making sure that they have their permits updated. Notes. In September of 1941, the Conservation Commission established the Master Conservationist Award. In September of 1956, the department completed negotiations at Table Rock State Park. This is not scrolling well, and I've got to be able to scroll through these next ones. But I think it's very appropriate that we spend a little more time on this particular slide. And that bow tie in particular. I would love to know the history of that. So, members of the commission, it's now time to recognize 2 of our MDC leaders who have served this department so incredibly well, but are about to embark on the exciting new chapter that is called retirement. First, we have Mr. Bill White. Bill, I hate to do this to you. Would you mind just coming up here for a minute? Sorry.
And the bow tie, I was really hip back then. Honestly.
Do you still have that bow tie? I'm not sure I've ever seen one quite that large, but it was beautiful. Members of the commission, I want to recognize this illustrious career, 34 years at the Missouri Department of Conservation. I mean, that's got to be, there's not a lot of people who have served that long. You started as a wildlife services biologist. Since 2000, you have been with the Community and Private Land Services branch. You've served as the branch chief for CPLC for the last 9 years. This man, I tell you, his creativity in figuring out how to get conservation on the ground is beyond anything that I have seen. He is recognized around this nation. His creativity with these cooperative positions in particular, with agricultural partners, I don't know of another state that partners with as many agricultural partners. But are you another picture that we're laughing at?
Godfather of the
The God, yeah. So we need to probably explain the Godfather of Bees and Brews Club. We probably should have you two explain that. But as part of the Bee Atlas, where we're collecting bees from around the country to better understand bee populations, a variety of bee species, where they're pollinating, where they're most active. There is a group of our own MDC employees that have started, hopefully after work, hopefully after 5 o'clock, collecting these bees, but apparently they need a brew in the other hand to do so. And so Bill has been named as the godfather of the Bees and Brews Club. But I think what I really want to note him for, and want to just ask if you want to say any remarks, is, our private lands, community conservation and private lands branch is recognized nationally. I don't know of another state that has the capacity we do and the focus that we do on private lands. And part of that is we're a land or a state that is 93% private land ownership. But from the Regenerative Ag Center that we now have at the University of Missouri would not have happened but for this man and Max Halliger. These cooperative positions would not have happened without this man. There are so many other examples where Bill would come and say, so I got an idea. And as a result of that, we are doing things on private lands in the name of conservation that is absolutely remarkable. You leave such an amazing legacy. And I will miss your calm demeanor. I will miss your creativity and just your leadership style, Bill. It's been remarkable. Congratulations on an amazing career.
Well, none of what the director talked about couldn't have been done without the team of partners and staff we have. And after 34 years, that's probably the biggest thing I'll miss leaving this agency. So thank you very much. It's been a great run. No regrets, except when I moved to Missouri, I was very disappointed there's no polka bands that I've ever found.
Maybe you retired. All right, here we go for another celebration. Just take a moment to look at these pictures. They are some great pictures. They are some fantastic pictures. Our own Deputy Director, Dr. Mike Hubbard. So we could do slides and slides and slides. I just have a few examples of how he served this agency, but I imagine that nearly everyone in this room could talk about their own story and their own picture of how Dr. Hubbard has served this agency. He served us 23 years at the department, various leadership roles, including wild turkey biologist, program supervisor, unit chief, chief for CPLC, and resource science division. And of course has served as my deputy director for resource management since 2018, and in that capacity also serving as the regulations chair. He has remarkably helped lead a historic MDC reorganization, and his span of authority was most impacted by the reorganization, and I so appreciate his strong leadership throughout that. We could certainly name a lot of other awards, but I want to note MAFWA's Spirit of the Shack Award, which is really the highest award that MAFWA offers to someone who really has left a legacy in conservation, and so that was just his latest. I know I personally will dearly miss his even-keeled and calming demeanor, his scientific and yet common sense approach to regulations, but mostly his love and passion for the resource and for staff in this agency. But we're not done with this particular story of Dr. Mike Hubbard. Since this is his last commission, I think it's very appropriate for the commission to understand a little bit about his first commission meeting. But to do that and talk about where did his journey begin, Eric Kurzieski a retiree and longtime friend of Mike's, wants to share a little story. Eric, I must say, I'm a little surprised that here you are before the commission and you look like you just got out of bed with that wrinkled shirt.
And I'm awful surprised that the director was willing to give me the microphone. But I'm going to take full advantage of this. So I wanted to kind of give the commission the backstory on Mike Hubbard, both his first commission meeting, but I'll go back even a little bit further than that and just simply getting him hired. So we had a turkey grouse biologist position open. I knew Mike. I was glad that he applied. He came in down to Columbia. We had a two-stage interview then. You may still have it now, New Bar. Had a formal interview and an informal interview. The informal's with the supervisors and a few other key people. Mike came in. I said, how'd you do in the formal part? Not very good, I don't think. I said, how come? He said, all they asked me were stupid questions that regurgitated what was on my resume. They should have already read that stuff and known it. I said, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of what they asked there. He said, they didn't ask me about how I think. And boy, I mean, that stuck with me, because the most important thing we hired people to do was think. And I was like, I think this guy might have a place here. Then it became real clear to those of us, and Larry Van Gilder, who's here with me today, was involved, that Mike was a PhD who could go anywhere he wanted in academia, go work at a university, go make a great name for himself. But his real interest was public service. He really wanted to work for an agency that served the public. He wanted to do the most good for the most people in the state of Missouri. So I had a predicament. He bombed the formal. He did great in the informal. Luckily, I had a supportive division chief. Back then, New Bauer, we had a supportive HR chief. I don't know where you just stood on it. But we were able to get Mike on board. So, hey, job one is done, right? So then he's on less than a week, and he already knew ahead of time he had to come make a presentation to the commission. Had to do a turkey population status update and regs package. So we got him all the information ahead of time so he could work through it, and he had it pretty well down pat what he was going to say and do. Meeting was in Chillicothe. I was picking Mike up at a little shack he'd rented way out in the country in southern Boone County. I got down there in the car, leaving enough time to get to Chillicothe by 10. That's when we were on the agenda. Got down there, plenty of time to give us 15, 20 minutes to get there ahead of time, and Mike walks out of the shack. And if you think this shirt's wrinkled, this is a pressed shirt. Okay? I don't know how you can get a shirt more wrinkled than what Mike had on. Plus, he had on blue jeans. And blue jeans were verboten, man. You could not wear blue jeans. You sure as hell couldn't wear them to a commission meeting. And I'm like, I'm this guy's supervisor. My job is to run interference and to take some bullets for him. So the first thing I said nicely is, you got anything else you can wear? He said, everything I got was stuffed in this green duffel bag. There's just a couple T-shirts and this one dress shirt. I'm like, get in the car, let's go. I thought, I might have time to stop at an Orscheln's and get him a shirt, but we're running tight. And I thought, I know most of the regional staff in Kirksville. We'll get there 20 minutes ahead. We'll get in the door. I'll say to somebody, give me your shirt. You're trading Mike out, and at least, you know, have jeans, but I can handle that. He'll have a decent looking shirt. And we weren't out of the car, were we? No. For our division chief was out there. Where the hell have you been? Well, we're not on till 10, and it's 22. The commission changed their mind. They wanted you on at 8 o'clock. Oh, we didn't know that. Okay, so now Mike's got a wrinkled shirt, blue jeans, and he's 2 hours late for the presentation to the commission. And he did a heck of a bang-up job. He came out of there with all the commissioners saying, man, I'm so glad you hired that guy. He didn't get any heat for the wrinkled shirt, any heat for the blue jeans. I did, but that was my job as a supervisor, and it was one of those teachable moments for both of us. So that was kind of Mike's first commission meeting. Now, Mike, I don't know how you want to look for your last reg presentation. I did bring a replica. I did bring a replica for you. And I bet if you put that on, Sarah's not going to do anything to you.
That's perfect. That is perfect.
So, and then in all seriousness, a few other things about Mike. As I said, he clearly wanted to work for the people of Missouri. My mentor, Larry Van Gilder's mentor, John Lewis, always used to say, we work for the one gallus hunter, the hunter who's got one gallus broken on their overalls and figures they don't got the money to replace it till the other one breaks. And never forget, we're working for the citizens of this state. And I think Mike always had that in mind. So when he hadn't been on very long, we took his son Carter and my son Jack, they were about 10, down to Arkansas to turkey hunt down in the Buffalo River Wilderness Country where I used to like to go when I could get along better. And we went down there, had a great trip. Arkansas had a weird law that the kids didn't have to buy a license unless they killed a turkey. If they killed a turkey, then they had to buy a license and check it in. Mike's son killed a bird. We came marching out of there. We'd had a wonderful time. And the Park Service agent stopped us, checked us. And that was fine. We weren't doing anything wrong. But we said, where's the check station? He said, I don't have any idea. Let me call Arkansas Game and Fish on the radio. So we're huddled around the car door. He calls an Arkansas Game and Fish agent, says, I got a couple guys and their kids from Missouri down here and they want to know where a check station is. The reply over the radio, I don't know if your protection chief's here, was write them sons of bitches a ticket. I know they've done something wrong. Our kids' eyes got this big, but we weathered that storm. There weren't any tickets given. But on that hunt, Mike, you remember you brought a newfangled device called a cell phone with us? And didn't work in the hollers, but one time we climbed up on top of one of the mountains and by God it worked. Mike called Kathy and she wanted to talk to Carter. The boys have been running around this glade and she said, what are you doing, Carter? He said, I'm on the top of a mountain with a lizard in my pocket. So they'd been catching little Scolophorus fence lizards up there on the glade. On the trip back, Mike started talking about the ideas of making checking easier and simpler, about the ideas of maybe how do we expand youth hunting opportunities. And so he was one of the ones, along with other staff, who took the lead on telecheck. Let's make it easier, simpler for people to check their critters. You know, gas was $1.25 a gallon then, but it was still money that somebody had to spend to drive to the check station. Pretty fierce internal resistance. And I was really proud of what Mike did to listen to the people we worked with, to take their comments, to take their ideas, to mold and meld this thing as we move forward, to inch into it so everybody was happy. And I think he did a great thing for the many citizens of Missouri by pushing that forward. The same was true of youth seasons. This is my grandson. He's got a pretty good smile on his face. He and his two sisters were together when he shot his first turkey this past spring during the youth season. And Mike said, let's see about giving kids a couple days on their own. Again, the internal resistance was, well, Mike remembers, it was substantial. But he, again, was able to listen to people, work with people, and find solutions so he could help the most people in our state to get out and enjoy something like this. So he did just a stellar job with that. And so Mike, as a colleague, as a friend, as a Missourian, I want to thank you for all you did for the many people in this state in your career. Job well done. You made us proud, man. And there's one more thing, Mike. I'm thinking about trying to get you to go back down to Arkansas because I need somebody to help me climb those mountains. And I know it isn't going to be easy. So if you'd come up here. Commissioner Harrison put something together for you that might make that trip a little easier. I don't know. Probably ought to unwrap.
Well, why not?
Yeah, we don't tie our shoes anymore either.
No, if you can help it. Well, we'll get out here by noon.
We get chainsaw. Obviously, my wife wrapped up.
I don't have my pocket knife, so you do that up.
Boy, she did too. Now, there is no getting over this thing. All right.
You want the bottom? No, seriously, I got
I got one.
I got to get you wrapped up.
This makes it more fun.
Not really.
I can tell some more stories about Black.
Don't do that.
It's tape too, so.
Oh, is it? Well, it's good.
Yeah.
There we go.
Go ahead, they ought to get it out of there now.
Yeah, sure we will. Boy, she has taken it. This was part of the deal, wasn't it, Steve?
Look at this. This is cool, man.
I didn't know.
That's exactly what I need. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I got a few other things to say briefly in a moment, but it has been a run.
It's got Dave Murphy's part of his name badge on it.
Oh, no kidding. It's really special. Thank you all. I can't believe they let me do this for as long as I have. So it's been a lot of fun with a lot of wonderful people to work with. Never felt like I had to go to work a day since I started here. I wish I could have done it a few more years. Thank you all, and thank you for all the work you guys do and will continue to do, all the support you've lent me, all the help, insights, guidance, leadership. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Enough of that. Thank you.
Well, very nice. Great career, Mike, appreciate that. And again, Bill, great career. And we're losing some good guys, but I'm sure they'll be involved within the organization and conservation throughout the state in some capacity as they go down that road to retirement or that next chapter of their life, as sometimes we say. So again, congratulations, and appreciate everybody coming today in their honor and giving them some great accolades and their future careers and retirement. So thank you very much. With that, we're going to move on to Danny Hartwig, and I will echo the comments from the director about a great trip up to Union Ridge yesterday and great hospitality and saw some beautiful country. And with that, Danny, the podium's yours.
Very good. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director, Deputies, and everyone here. Appreciate you being here today. Welcome to the Northeast Regional Office. I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to take you up there and show you some of the great work that our staff here in Northeast Region has done. And anyway, just a real pleasure. So you'll see that I've entitled this presentation today, Working Together. Now, I could go branch by branch, share what each branch is doing. I could tell you about the 32,000 contacts that Protection Branch had last fiscal year. I could tell you about the 240 programs Education Branch held last year with 4,700 participants. But I thought it better to show some highlights from the region that will showcase our accomplishments as a region. I've always said that the Northeast region is small but mighty, kind of like our Putnam County Midgets. We have the smallest population of any of the 8 administrative regions. We've got the smallest number of FTEs. We have to work together in order to accomplish the conservation work that we do. That was true before the reorganization, and it's just made it much easier even since we've reorganized. So let's take a look at the numbers. The Northeast region consists of 15 counties with 2 public contact offices here in Kirksville and over in Hannibal. We're home to 91 full-time employees with 6 statewide positions hosted in our region. And we manage 96 areas and accesses with about 84,000 acres of conservation ground. We're the home to Ted Shanks Conservation Area, a storied waterfowl hunting area with a rich history in Pike County. This 4,000 acre area averages over 6,000 visiting hunters each duck season. So you're talking a lot for a 60-day season there. We're also proud to be home to Honeywell Hatchery. And this small but, significant warm water hatchery produces 8 different species at various lengths and sizes. And last year they produced over 1 million fish totaling over 37,000 pounds. Pretty significant. Later this month, they'll be conducting their annual catfish harvest and distributing those catfish all around the state. Over on the border of Monroe and Rawls counties, you'll find the 18,600 acre Mark Twain Lake, which is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers lake. However, we're responsible for the fisheries management of the lake and conducted several studies on both crappie and catfish on that lake. You may remember the catfish study that was presented to the Commission last year that resulted in a change in regulations that went into effect this past spring. And we're also wrapping up a crappie exploitation study there where we're studying just what the effectiveness is of all the tools that we're using now on crappie fishing. And finally, we're home to 101 miles of Mississippi River frontage. Our staff really love working on the river, managing the vast fisheries resources that flow along our state's eastern boundary, and we're going to talk just a little bit more about that here in a minute. So briefly, just to discuss some of the priorities that are found in the Northeast region, I'll draw your attention to this map. It's a busy map, as are we, but a few things I want to highlight for you. The 4 stars on here represent cities in our region that have a population over 5,000. And I know you visit all the regions and you say, well, 5,000, that's not much of a town. Well, that's more people than I've got in my whole county, so we like to recognize them. 3 of them actually are over 10,000, and Kirksville and Hannibal both roughly the same size, coming in a little over 17,000. What you see, and we discussed a little bit yesterday about the CWD management zone, the 10 counties are our counties that are in the CWD management zone. We, unfortunately, have been a part of CWD management since it was first discovered in the state here in our region. And we have, I would like to think, contributed a lot to that over the years as far as how we do things, as far as mandatory sampling, as far as our winter operations, and working with landowners to battle this devastating disease. The light blue areas that you see on there are priority watersheds. The smaller pinkish kind of colored polygons represent our conservation areas. And the bright yellow piece kind of up there in the northeast part of the region, or the northwest part of the region, represents our priority geography, the Spring Creek watershed, which you got to visit yesterday and get just a small taste of. But the final priority that I'll mention today is a major priority that covers the entire region. And some of the folks were bringing that up yesterday. I know Commissioner Harrison was. The Indiana bat. Our region is the epicenter and the bright red spot on the map for the Indiana bat. We provide critical summer maternity habitat for maternity colonies to rear and raise their pups. And we also hold the largest known hibernaculum throughout their range. It's estimated that a little over 1/3 of the known population spend their winters in this hibernaculum near Hannibal. So just a very major important thing in everything that we do up here. So now back to some of those great examples of working together that I mentioned earlier. And I told you the staff love working on the river, and I love joining them when I can. Yes, I put a picture of myself in here, but thank you, Maddie, for the picture. Staff recently completed some mussel surveys on the Mississippi River. And mussels are a very important critter that, they serve as filters for algae, bacteria, and other particles in the water, improving water quality, cycling nutrients and energy into streams and lakes. So our goals with this survey were threefold. First was just to update information. Our second was to train staff. We've got staff that have done this work before, but are nearing retirement, the same as with Mike and Bill here. And so we wanted to pass that institutional knowledge on. And then finally, we wanted to continue to build partnerships that you're going to hear a lot about in this presentation. So we contracted some divers for 10 days, professional divers, to survey 11 different mussel beds in 4 different pools of the river. The divers would work their way across the bottom of the river, feeling and pulling up mussels, and then they'd hand them up to staff, and then we'd identify them, measure them, and record each mussel from each of the different sites before we returned them to the same bed from which they came. This type of sampling is extremely important. We hadn't conducted this type of sampling on our stretch of the river for 15 to 20 years. And many of these species that we got to handle that day are species of conservation concern, the day that I was there and also the other 9 days. Because mussels are sensitive to habitat disturbance and pollution, they're great indicators of the overall health of the aquatic ecosystem and water quality. Just preliminary, looking at the data that we found there, we found that 2 mussel beds in Pool 20 appear to be declining. We think it's probably likely to sedimentation in the river. 1 bed in Pool 24 no longer exists. We didn't find anything there. But however, on a positive note, the mussels that we relocated from the Hannibal bed prior to the riverfront construction are doing well, and the new riverfront is actually beginning to naturally recover and colonize their own bed back there where they've done all that construction right down there along the front of Hannibal. Other large and historic beds appear to be in good condition. The numbers of mussels and species diversity were both good, just generically speaking. During the sampling period, we were able to locate 24 different species of mussels. You might not even know there's 24 species, and people a lot of times think of the clear Ozark streams and finding mussels down there, and it's just important habitat up here in the Mississippi. Of those 24, 5 of them that we found were species of conservation concern, and 1, ebony shell, was a state endangered species. Now, everything doesn't always go as you want it to go, so right off the bat, day 1, we encountered some challenges, I guess you'd say, when our lead biologist had COVID. So we utilized technology, texting, phone calls, to help guide the effort, gain support, and identify and help age the mussels as we needed. After that, he was able to work from a separate boat the rest of that week and just yell across at us and tell us what we were doing wrong. But in order to meet our goals, like I said, institutional knowledge was passed on to many staff, ensuring we could conduct successful sampling again in the future. We were also able to use this opportunity to build on key partnerships. We engaged a local TV reporter to help share our message, staff from the St. Louis district of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, including the chief of the Environmental Compliance Branch, master naturalists, local teachers, and a PhD student who was working on on mussel research. The project was a huge success and met all 3 goals which we set out for. In late March, we were able to present day and evening with wildlife programs thanks to our partners at Monroe City Schools. During the day, we delivered 5 different presentations to 530 students and teachers. I mean, I think that was fantastic. In the evening, we had a bunch of different exhibits. I think 24 is the number I had here for citizens to visit. We had booths from many partners, including Army Corps of Engineers, Missouri DNR State Parks Division, Quail Forever, Missouri Trappers Association, National Wild Turkey Federation, Beekeepers, Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund, and a whole bunch more. We're able to, kind of the excitement for the night, we gave a couple presentations. One was on black bears in Missouri, which was a big hit. And then our very own canine Penny was the star of the night, however, along with Corporal Cleaver. I guess I'll give him a little credit as well for the demonstration that she put on there in the auditorium. We had, like I said, a total of 285 citizens attend that evening portion. So just a fantastic event. Another opportunity that we had earlier this summer, our team led a stream investigation event for the Douglas Community Services Kids in Motion summer program. Now I'll read this to you. Kids in Motion is an 8-week summer program that helps underprivileged middle school students value hard work, their futures, and their communities by completing service projects and earning financial incentives. Students learn life skills that help them transition to successful adults. So we were able to take 23 kids to this event on Pino Creek down in Raniker Conservation Area there in southern Pike County. They learned about stream health and biodiversity, how to sample and ID fish, macroinvertebrate sampling and ID, stream dynamics, where aquatic animals live, as well as learn about careers as fisheries management biologists. And I mean, you can see just the looks on their faces. They had a good time. Not only did they have fun, but when they were asked, they enthusiastically said they could see themselves doing this as a career. So just a fantastic opportunity to work in with that partnership. This year, we also began furthering our relationship with Smithfield Foods to reach underserved audiences. Smithfield employs about 1,000 employees over here at their processing plant in Milan. Of those, 40% are Latino, 20% are Congolese, and so just an audience that we have not had good success reaching. And so this partnership has allowed us to reach out directly with them. So we worked with Smithfield leadership to be a part of their Employee Appreciation Day at the Milan City Lake. Smithfield provided the lunches, and our staff worked different stations on casting, fishing, snakes, insects, bird watching, fly tying, filleting fish, much more. It was a great success, and as Captain Matt Markley reflected on the event, he made a good comment. He said, "I usually get great satisfaction from watching kids catch their first fish. But when several adults went from not knowing how to cast to casting and catching their first fish, it was truly fun to watch." So not only reaching these underserved audiences, but just making a difference in the lives of these folks and hopefully starting a new passion for them. We've already begun discussing our next interaction with Smithfield. We think maybe we'll try archery this next time. We've also began discussions with them on a pollinator plot there at their plant, just outside their break area, where hopefully they can enjoy nature a little bit while they relax on their breaks. So we look forward to continuing to develop this opportunity to reach out and continue to connect to new audiences. Now, over the years, youth hunts are not a new thing. You've probably heard about youth hunts where you've won or maybe even participated and helped out with some across the state. But I want to highlight some that are extra special to us. We've been working the past few years with Missouri Disabled Sportsmen, Rest in Him Lodge up in Putnam County, Daddy and Game Calls, the Outdoor Dream Foundation, and many generous landowners to provide youth deer and turkey hunts. Okay, you say, well, what's so special? So these children that you see in these photos and all the other children that have participated in these hunts have terminal or chronic illnesses. So much like you may have heard of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the Outdoor Dream Foundation's goal is to take these kids out and let them have a fantastic opportunity hunting. They get to fish while they're there as well. The partnership and donations allow each child to travel in. These are not just children from Missouri, they're from all over the United States, but the donations allow them to travel in, to stay, to eat, and hunt completely free of charge for not only the children but their parents as well. Rob Garver in our education branch has been our lead contact with these partners. And Rob summed it up pretty well when he said it's important for all individuals to get to enjoy the outdoors, but this event brings joy to these kids and these parents that's indescribable. So just a fantastic partnership that we've been privileged to be a part of. So I said I wasn't going to call out branches, but this is one slide where I'm going to call out a specific unit in the Northeast region. The green dots that you see overlaid on the Northeast region represent the landowner contacts for last fiscal year from our Community and Private Lands Conservation Unit. There's 1,130 of them, so that's pretty impressive, right? But there's more to the story. Many years ago, when you heard mention of this, we were talking about Bill White, we developed a cooperative position with Quail Forever to create a farm bill biologist. This biologist was employed by Quail Forever, but helped us meet our goal of serving landowners and putting conservation into practice. That program has since grown in the Northeast region to 4 full-time Farm Bill biologists scattered across our region. You can see on this map here, we've got some distinct areas of white where there's not many green dots. If I add the 586 contacts, though, from these Farm Bill biologists, our map looks much, much better. And I think you can see how this partnership is complementing our work very well. All of these efforts led to 278 management plans written across the region on nearly 20,000 acres. Helped us expend over $163,000 in MDC cost share, not to mention the federal cost share, which is a significant amount. Partnerships just like this are true multipliers of our efforts here in the region. The Mississippi Hills Master Naturalist chapter is the newest Master Naturalist chapter in the state. Coming in, they've been in existence just about 5 years. We've trained 68 members in the chapter, which is pretty much mostly folks around Hannibal and that type of area. We still have 45 to 50 of those that we've trained that remain active to date. They help us out with different projects across the region. Some of the surveys that Dr. Worthington was talking about yesterday, they've been instrumental in. They've helped us out with prescribed burning, invasive species removal, education events, area and trail maintenance. And as you can see in the biggest picture here from the smile on their faces are wood duck banding over at Ted Shanks. And I think it's important to note that this Master Naturalist chapter actually built one of the 2 traps that we used this year to trap the wood ducks so we could band them. They're just always hungry for more work. It's an amazing group that is just wanting to do more and more for conservation, and I have a hard time trying to stay out in front of them to make them happy by giving them more to do. Last year, these Master Naturalists contributed 2,900 service hours. And over the past 5 years, they've contributed over 11,000 hours. They've got a goal of establishing 7 prairies each year for 7 years. They're in their 3rd year of the program, and they've hit their mark every year thus far and on our track to hit it again this year. I have no doubt they will continue to do so over the next 4 years as well. Just another example of a fantastic partnership, how we're working together. You might recognize this place here. As you can see from this presentation, much is being accomplished in the Northeast region. And that's due, we have a wonderful and dedicated staff. But just like all of us, they're limited by the number of hours in the day and the number of days in the year. I'm proud to say that we also have wonderful and dedicated partners to help us out with our mission. Even more than I was able to highlight today, to be able to come in, step in, fill the gaps, and help us provide the best we can for everyone in our region. We're going to continue to work to develop partnerships just like these, the ones we already have, as well as new partnerships in the future, to continue working together to ensure a bright future for conservation in Northeast Missouri. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you'd have for me.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
Great presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Well done, Danny. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioners, we have our consent calendar and the items we need to bring forward. Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Next up, regulations. Mr. Hubbard.
Back again.
Yes. That was quick.
Short retirement. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and Director Polly. The Regulations Committee met on August 11th of 22 for continued mid-year review of the Wildlife Code. 3 recommendations for 2023 code changes were reviewed by the committee and are brought forward today. A copy of each proposed rulemaking is included in your packet. Mr. Chairman, before I begin my formal report, recall that earlier this year the Commission voted to approve 2 recommendations for regulation changes related to allowed methods for hunting other game during deer and elk seasons. Following the Commission's initial consideration in May, Those proposed rulemakings were filed with the Secretary of State's office, published in the Missouri Register, which initiated a 30-day public comment period. From July 2nd through the July 31st, the department received one comment, which was unrelated to the proposed regulations. A summary of this input along with staff response is included in formal orders of rulemaking provided in your commission packet beginning on page 3. This presentation of order of rulemaking is a formal commission action item, signifies the final step in the department's regulation process. The commission has the authority to adopt as originally written, amend, or withdraw the proposed regulations. If approved today, these changes will be effective November 30th. Mr. Chairman, unless the commission has any questions or concerns, I request approval of final orders of rulemaking for 3 CSR 10-7.433 deer firearms hunting season and 3 CSR 10-7.705 elk hunting seasons, with no changes to the original recommendations.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll move on to my formal report. Commissioners, your approval of the proposed changes presented today signifies the first step in the Department of Conservation's rulemaking process. Following your vote, all proposed rulemakings will be filed with the Secretary of State's office for publication in the Missouri Register, which will initiate a 30-day formal public comment period. Comments received on specific proposals will be compiled and presented as part of final orders of rulemaking for commission consideration at your meeting in December. The anticipated effective date for the proposed rulemakings brought forward today is February 28th of 2023. Unless you have questions regarding the process, I'll move on with the action items for the commission to consider. The first recommended change is to 3 CSR 10-11.160, use of boats and motors, and if approved, will allow certain boats other than department-owned boats on designated waters on August A. Bush Memorial Conservation Area and James A. Reed Memorial Wildlife Area. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval of 11.160, use of boats and motors, as described.
Commissioners, do I have a motion to that effect? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Commissioners, the next two proposed amendments are to 10-9.354, privileges of Class 3 wildlife breeders, and 10-9.565, licensed hunting preserves privileges. Changes to 9.354 will allow new cervid facilities to be permitted by the department within a certain distance of chronic wasting disease positive cervids if a double fence is constructed and no cervid occupy the area between the interior and exterior fences. Changes to 9.565 will allow new big game hunting preserves to be permitted by the department within a certain distance of the chronic wasting disease positive cervid if a double fence is constructed and no animal is confined, pursued, or taken in the area between the interior and exterior fences, and clarifies when an animal has entered the preserve for purposes of the animal identification requirements for the rule. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval of these proposed amendments as described.
Do I have a motion to that effect? Any discussion?
I have some questions.
Absolutely.
Just for clarity of our conversation, we are changing the distance. Could you share, just for a little bit of conversation, about what we're changing the distance from or to?
At this point in time, none of those facilities are allowed to be constructed within 25 miles of a known CWD positive animal. Now we are talking about going down to 10 miles if an individual is willing to double fence their new facility. We're doing this mainly at request of industry as we look at that, given the regulations that we have in place. No new CWDs with any of those facilities. We continue to strengthen our relationship with that group of individuals. Still can't import deer into Missouri, but you can move them around. And this new rule allows those folks to utilize that additional area, but also makes it so that if they do choose to build that facility, that they can export deer if they follow those requirements. that falls within this national CWD herd certification program, which allows movement of those animals out of the state to other states through that program. So that's why we are doing that at this point in time.
And I know we talk about the double fence, a little bit about the science behind the double fence.
You know, the reality is there's probably not any hard science behind the double fence. It is one of those things that it prevents animal-to-animal contact, and it has never been the agency's approach to eliminate all risks. We see this as a way that we can provide additional opportunity for some Missouri citizens to utilize that as an opportunity for their land without significantly increasing the risk to the free-ranging deer in the state. And this is just a step towards continuing to work with those partners, with our Department of Ag, with USDA, to try to do our best to walk the line between what we need to do for the free-ranging animals as well as what we need to do with confined animals behind those fences and help our Missouri landowners on all sides.
And what is being proposed is double fencing both breeding facilities as well as big game reserves.
Any new facilities that are constructed or expanded within those areas, that is exactly what we are requiring with this regulation. At this point, they can't expand or construct a new facility inside of that 25-mile border.
Do we know, and maybe you guys have shared this and it's just not top of my brain, do we know how many big game hunting preserves are connected to breeding facilities?
Or directly connected, or are you the same owner of both facilities?
Yep, spot
I don't
on.
know that I could tell you exactly. We have around 40 big game hunting preserves left in the state. I would say that, pardon?
36.
36. And I would bet that 90% of them probably have their own breeding facilities, either connected or in close
Yeah.
proximity.
What I'm getting at is the big game hunting preserves are one way in, right?
They should be a one-way street.
Yes.
Correct. The animals that go in there should not come out alive.
Yeah, okay. I think those are my questions for now. Thank you, Dr. Hubbard.
Good questions, good response. Thank you. Any other discussion? Have a motion to that effect?
Yes, sir. I just had a couple of questions. I understand the reason of the double fence. If that's effective, the existing breeding facilities, because some of them are grandfathered in, that are within the CWD management zones, right?
Correct.
And, I just kind of trying to think through this, Mike, but when we start looking at protecting the wild deer too, if the double fencing is effective, the hunting preserves, that's one way. They go in, they come out dead, even if they're within an area that has a positive. So it appears to me the biggest risk is the wild deer that we could potentially contact, because statistically those should be CWD-free deer that go in there, because they can't be transported unless they're from a monitored herd of, I think, 5 years minimum. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes, if they want to maintain their CWD.
Yeah, if they
certification.
maintain their status. The thing that I guess have a concern is that the existing facilities that are breeding facilities that were grandfathered in, although they're a CWD monitored herd, those animals in there could potentially have in contact, are still getting moved. I mean, that's one piece of that puzzle that I guess is a little concerning.
That's absolutely correct, and the commission made that decision several years ago on grandfathering those facilities in. And as I've stated earlier, it has never been our intent to try to eliminate all risks. We've tried to do what is reasonable to protect animals that the commission oversees on both sides of the fence. And so, yeah, it would be great if those existing facilities had double fencing around them. It would be good for the owners of those facilities to do that, because if they get CWD, their world changes, as we all know. And it would be nice if they could protect the free-ranging herd a little better. But with our continued relationship with the industry and how much better it is today than it was several years ago, our increased testing, our new regulations related to if they don't have appropriate samples in the way that they can test the animals inside those facilities to come back up to par. I think we're in a pretty strong position of being able to, like I said, walk the line between total ban on holding captive cervids and still providing an opportunity for Missouri citizens to have that opportunity to own those animals and to.
Yeah, and I think it's a real positive thing, work with the industry. The only other comment I'd have on it is, you know, the breeding facilities, the financial burden, you know, I mean, that's, the breeding facilities, you know, if you're real serious about doing that, it's probably tolerable. But boy, when I looked at the financial burden to the hunting preserve, I mean, that was, you know, pushing $400,000. That was the one that really jumped out at me,
Yeah.
particularly whenever that was a one-way facility and their biggest risk is from the other direction if they're putting in CW. That's what really got my attention,
Yeah.
is on that there. I mean, it almost makes it to where it's not practical to do.
Well, it certainly would be a significant financial benefit or detriment in terms of a new owner trying to establish a new facility inside that buffer. But this does provide them a mechanism now that doesn't exist today.
And so was the industry receptive to that, or what was the contact
Yes,
there?
the industry representatives that we meet with on a regular basis were receptive to that. I'm not sure any of them said that this is, you know, something we're going to rush out and do.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think it is a step forward to continuing to build trust and make sure that we can keep the disease out of Missouri to the best of our ability without a very, very strict approach that we have chose not to move forward on.
Well, and I really appreciate your efforts, because I know that's been a contentious relationship, and the communication is very important. I know that, you know, Jason's worked on that hard. And
Jason
appreciate it.
and our Chief of Protection, Randy Dolman, have spent a lot of time working with that group, and we still have rough patches. We don't always see eye to eye, but we do have open lines of communication, and we do have personal relationships there that help now as we continue to move forward.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Thanks again for the questions, and thanks for the responses, Mike. We have a motion, we have a second. Let's call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, continue, Mike.
All right, Commissioners, for your awareness, included in your packet is one statement of actual cost. State statute requires a review of each submitted rule, amendment, or rescission 1 full fiscal year following the effective date to determine if the cost to all affected public entities is exceeded by 10% or more the estimated cost in the fiscal note, or has exceeded $500 if a declaration has been made stating that the proposed change will cost less than $500. This department staff recently reviewed rulemakings effective in 2020 and 2021 and determined 2 met the criteria for filing a statement of actual cost, one of which you were informed about at your July 29th meeting. The second is included in your packet on page 18 and has been filed for publication in the Missouri Register. Commissioners, a summary of all citizen comments received since my last Regulations Committee report are included in my formal report beginning on page 2. The final 2022 Regulations Committee meeting is scheduled for October 27th. Mr. Chairman, unless you or members of the Commission have questions, this concludes my final Regulations Committee report.
Okay.
And at this time, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to serve in this role for the last 5 years. Didn't realize that I'd be emotional about it. I'd also like to thank the director for her faith in me. My fellow deputies for their guidance and support. Julie Love, without whom none of this would have been possible. And for all the folks here, for a really enjoyable career, and Eric and Larry for taking a chance on me 23 years ago.
let's take a short break.
morning, Commissioners, Director. It's my, yeah, it's on, I think. Yeah, just loud. Okay, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Jason Isabel. Jason serves as our Cervid Program Supervisor. He holds a bachelor's degree in Environmental and Forest Biology from the State University of New York and a master's degree in Forestry and Wildlife Management from Stephen F. Austin University in Texas. In 2010, Jason joined the department as the state's turkey and ruffed grouse biologist, and during the spring of 2019 was promoted to his current role as Cervid Program Supervisor, where he oversees management of the state's deer and elk populations. Jason's here to provide us an update on revisions to the CWD management plan. Jason?
Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Director, and Deputies. It's a pleasure to be here. As Jason said, this morning I'll be providing an update on the revision of our CWD response plan. This will be a follow-up to the update that Jasmine Batten and I gave the Commission in May. So we'll start out with a brief history of CWD in Missouri. We'll talk about the plan revision process, the goals of the draft plan, along with some of the regulation considerations for the 2020 deer season that are resulting from this revision. Also touch on a couple CWD research projects that are related to the plan revision, and then we'll talk about timeline and next steps. So this map shows the current known distribution of CWD in North America. It looks very different than when the disease was first discovered in the late 1960s in Colorado. First detection east of the Mississippi River about 20 years ago, and since then the disease has been detected in 30 states, 4 Canadian provinces, several other countries. Some states have seen population declines that they've attributed to this disease. It's certainly recognized as one of the greatest conservation challenges of our time. Our first CWD surveillance and management plan was implemented in 2012 after detecting the disease in our state. That plan was subsequently revised several years later when we detected the disease here in Adair County and also in central Missouri and in east central Missouri. Fast forward to this year, as we've seen in the last 10 years since the disease was first detected in a wild herd, the distribution continues to grow. We've also seen some CWD detections close to our border in neighboring states. The two arrows show a recent positive in eastern Kansas and also a positive in northeastern Arkansas. If we look at the results of our surveillance last year, since we started CWD surveillance 20 years ago, we've sampled over 210,000 deer, 32,000 of those last year, had 86 positives in 18 counties. So although the distribution of the disease is concerning, thankfully our robust surveillance efforts have allowed us to detect the disease early where it exists. And so if we look at our apparent prevalence rates or the percentages, the samples that we tested that tested positive for CWD, less than 1%. If we look at the CWD positive counties, apparent prevalence rates were less than 1% in all but 2 counties, and those 2 counties were less than 2%. The stars show 4 new counties where we detected the disease the first time last year: Berry, Christian, Howland, Washington, and all of those counties' apparent prevalence rates are less than 1%. So with the robust surveillance efforts in detecting the disease early, we still have the ability to influence the course of this disease through management intervention. So with the detections in the new areas of the state, expanding spatial distribution, there's certainly a need to revise our CWD management plan and ensure that our surveillance and our management efforts remain adaptive to the changing disease dynamics in our state. I know I don't have to say this, but of course whitetails are extremely valuable, cherished natural resources in our state. About 476,000 people that heads to the woods annually to pursue whitetails. Estimate $1 billion annually to the economy and supporting over 12,000 jobs, so a really critical species in our state. We know CWD threatens the viability of our whitetail population, and so we need to ensure that our surveillance and management adapts through time as we see the disease dynamics change in our state. So we began this process early in the year, shortly following last year's deer hunting season. We started by engaging staff in February. In April, we gave an update on the revision process to the Regulations Committee, and then, as I mentioned, as you recall, in May, an update on where we were with the revision of that response plan at that time. So we have a draft CWD response plan completed as of June, And then we began a public engagement strategy later in the summer. We worked with our IT folks and our communications branch staff, as well as other science branch staff, and I really appreciate all their involvement in that effort. So a little bit more about that. There was a statewide news release that went out in late July that announced the revision of the response plan. We created a portion of our website that listed the plan, the draft plan goals and objectives, and also the proposals for deer hunting regulations that we were considering for the 2023 deer season. We had some information on that website that provided justification for why the plan was being revised. And we had an online comment opportunity on that website where citizens could review the draft goals, the draft objectives, and those proposed changes or regulation changes under consideration and provide their comments to us. As a companion to that effort, we also sent a survey to 57,000 deer hunters to get their opinions on the regulation considerations that I'll mention in just a few slides. So the 5 goals of the plan, largely these remain similar. We've had success in our surveillance efforts, success in our management efforts thus far, so largely these remain the same, although we have expanded on a couple of those, and I'll touch on these as we go through it. First goal deals with surveillance, detecting the disease early in new locations and monitoring changes in the distribution of the disease where we found it. We added a goal specific to hunter service testing, maintaining hunter confidence and trust by meeting hunter service demands and addressing real or perceived public health concerns associated with the disease. Communication is obviously really critical, continuing to provide information to our stakeholders and keeping them updated about disease status and about our surveillance and management efforts. Goal 4 deals with management and prevention, applying management actions to limit further spread of the disease and reducing the chances of it being introduced into new areas. And then we added Goal 5, research, supporting and conducting applied research on CWD and its epidemiology to support management of the disease. So a couple of the key changes in our approach that are addressed in this draft revised plan is realizing that our one-size-fits-all approach that we've been able to use thus far is simply not going to be likely to be sustained long-term given the status of the disease in the state. And so part of this plan involves classifying different areas where we have the disease and classifying them based on the level of disease prevalence and the spatial distribution. And so we would have areas of single detection, which as the name suggests would be an isolated positive, versus a pre-established infection where prevalence rates are low, spatial distribution is rather low, and we have the ability to effectively implement localized management to help slow the spread of the disease, versus an endemic area where prevalence rates would be higher, spatial distribution would be bigger, and localized management efforts would not be as likely to be successful. In terms of operationalizing the revised plans, at least on the surveillance front, mandatory sampling continues to be a really important way of detecting sparks early, monitoring the distribution of the disease in the management zone counties. But with 38 counties in the zone right now, and this year we've already put into practice sampling a subset of those, so this fall we'll sample 34 of the 38 counties. And so moving forward, developing an assessment tool that we can look at each county in the zone and prioritize where surveillance would be the most helpful in terms of detecting the disease early in new areas so that we can put management on the ground in those areas to slow spread. Also realizing that if we have areas that are endemic, where we have higher prevalence, we're probably going to need to shift gears in terms of mandatory sampling and probably need to not repeat that annually, use those resources elsewhere, check back in periodically to monitor trends and prevalence in those areas. We've got a robust statewide surveillance program, and that's due in large part to some of the partnerships that we have. We have over 100 taxidermists throughout the state that collect CWD samples for us. We've got 34 meat processors in the zone that pull samples for us as well, so that's a really vital part of our statewide surveillance program. But building upon that, working with regional staff to develop county-based sampling goals that will be achieved annually just to support that further effort to locate the disease early if it's newly introduced into an area. In terms of the management response, our response to initial detections and pre-establishment infections will be similar at those scales. As I've mentioned, localized management is likely to be successful in slowing the spread of the disease, and so in those areas, our targeted culling program remains a proven tool to help slow the spread of the disease. We have an ongoing research project that I'll talk about in a couple slides that's going to be really impactful in how we operationalize this plan and how we apply targeted removals moving forward, and I'll cover that in a couple slides. And then in terms of endemic infection, we know the larger the footprint of the disease is in an area and the greater the prevalence rates, the less likely localized management is to be successful. And so as we move forward if we have areas that are classified as endemic. Targeted removals are likely to be ceased or applied in a limited manner, and it would also cause us to reevaluate the need for CWD management permits in those endemic areas. There are 3 regulations considerations for the 2023 deer season that are a result of the revision of this response plan to increase harvest in CWD management zone counties. The first, to increase the maximum number of firearms antlerless permits with the current maximum of 2 and increasing that to 4 in select counties. Also creating a 3-day early antlerless portion of firearms deer season that would occur in early to mid-October, and a 5-day CWD portion of firearms deer season in late November in management zone counties. And I will also note too that at least with the first 2 proposals here, or considerations I should say, not only do those have value in a disease management standpoint, but also in counties outside of our management zone where we need additional tools to increase antlerless harvest to meet our deer management goals. The third one being specific to the CWD management zone counties, giving that extra 5 days of hunting opportunity for hunters in those management zone counties. This is the research project that I had alluded to earlier. This is a project in collaboration with Emory University and University of Montana, using a modeling framework to evaluate the effectiveness thus far of our targeted removal efforts here in north central Missouri, but also looking at targeted culling and influencing our decisions moving forward, looking at a number of different trigger points to help guide our targeted culling efforts where they're most likely to be effective. So it's a really valuable tool as we operationalize this plan and as we think about the expanding footprint of the disease and where we can be most effective from a management standpoint. As part of this project too, we'll be evaluating alternative harvest strategies to implement with localized management is less likely to be successful. This project is just wrapping up. We'll have the results this year and begin using that to operationalize the plan. The second project, and one that I mentioned at the May Commission meeting that we're about in the middle of, is more on the communication front. This is a project that we worked with regional staff on, a really interesting project that I think will really shape and help shape the future of the way we communicate about the disease with the public. So we conducted 12 focus group meetings late winter into early spring, one of which we conducted the last set here in Kirksville. So you see the map of our CWD core areas and the 4 circles on there, the areas where we conducted the focus group projects. We had 3 meetings in each of the 4 areas. We wanted to spread this around the state, just recognizing that we have different land use trends, different time sense detection, and wanted to capture any variability that may be influenced by those different factors. And so this project involved focus group meetings, generally 5 to 10 landowners in each meeting. We contracted with DJ Case and Associates to facilitate the focus group meetings. We had a set of questions and we just sat down and had candid conversations with landowners to try to identify what some of those barriers were and what some of those motivations were about participating in targeted culling, and honestly just their feelings about the disease in general and about our management approach. So those wrapped up this spring, and that's the first part of the project. We'll be taking the results of that project to craft questions that'll go to a mail survey to let CWD core area landowners throughout the state. So that's the second phase of the project. We'll be doing that this fiscal year. And just the last couple slides in terms of summary and next steps. Certainly we need to ensure that our surveillance and management efforts reflect the disease dynamics on our state. I've made that point a couple of times, but that's really critical, I think, as we consider the revision of this plan and what's to come in terms of future surveillance and management efforts. Certainly engage staff and the public in this effort. The draft plan, I said, is complete, and the final plan will be completed next month. So we're nearing the end. At this point in time, we're having internal deliberations about the proposed regulation changes and considering the feedback that we receive from our stakeholders during that engagement process. And then the ongoing research projects will be really helpful in terms of both operationalizing the plan from a management standpoint, but also communicating with the public moving forward. So here's the timeline. I mentioned the plan being done next month, and then we have the regulations committee meeting, of course, in October. That would be the 2023 deer season dates, an overview of the response plan, and then our deer packet, our regulations proposal for the 2023 deer season. And that same information would be brought to the December commission meeting. And then continue to work with staff as we operationalize the changes in the new plan, and then communicating with our stakeholders about any of the changes and how they may be affected. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
When you were meeting with the stakeholders, thank you. When you were meeting with the landowners and so on, was that did you find that they were really interested in helping, or was it an adversarial discussion regarding culling and that sort of stuff? I mean, and I know you're right, you're in the process of gathering all the information, but I'm just curious, how were you received with the landowners?
I think the meetings went really well overall. The way we structured the meetings, that we had the 3 meetings in each of the 4 areas. The first night was folks that have been supportive of culling from the start. The second meeting was folks that we had support from initially but lost that support for whatever reason. The third meeting was folks that have been opposed from the start. So we wanted to split those apart just so that we had more like-minded individuals in the room, so that one group wouldn't maybe cause the other to be less open, I guess. And so that kind of standard practice for focus groups. NDC staff weren't in the room. It was the contractors and the landowners. We were watching in, via like a webcam, so we could hear the conversation. We could watch in. Of course, made the landowners aware of that. And then had a series of questions that we asked, and it depended on, their personal opinions. We had, some folks that were, like I said, had been on board from the start, were really supportive. We had some folks that were clearly not supportive. But it was interesting just to get to have that dialogue and find out what some of those barriers were. And speaking personally, having watched it and then seeing the final report, we just had the final report delivered to us earlier this week from DJ Case, just really, really enlightening. I think it'll really help to shape that conversation moving forward.
Thank you.
Great work, Jason. Great presentation.
Thank
I
you.
know citizens have a lot of questions about CWD as the department is going from that one-size-fits-all approach to much more targeted, responsive approaches. What would you want the public to know just right now about the direction it's heading and the impact for this year's deer season?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of this year's deer season, it's really nothing different at this point. It's more looking ahead to 2023. I think the one exception would be mandatory sampling, of course, and deviating from the last couple of years where if you have harvested a deer on opening weekend anywhere in the zone, you had to bring it to a check station. So this year, certainly letting folks make sure they're aware that it's 34 of the 38, not all 38 counties. So that's part of that. But in terms of the rest of the changes that are coming with targeted culling, I think it's just getting the information out there that times have changed, that the landscape's not what it used to be, and it doesn't make sense to keep doing things the way that we've done them. They were right at the time, but as things change and adapt, so do we. And so I think it'll just be really critical because some of these changes are going to be a pretty big shift. And so I think just getting the information out there and making folks aware that this plan is being revised, our approach is changing, and making sure that we at least make sure we communicate, one, what we're doing differently, but equally as important, why we're doing it differently and the reason for that shift.
Well, Steve, any questions?
Oh, yeah, we could talk about this all day, as you well know, but, usually when you look at a problem, when you talk about it, you try to say, okay, these are solutions, I think, and boy, this is one I don't have any solutions to, so I'll say that first. But the thing that puzzles me on CWD management, we've been dealing with CWD or known it on the landscape since the mid-90s, and it seems like from state to state, we don't see a consensus of this is the best way to manage it. I'm sitting there looking at the distribution of CWD in North America, and California, Nevada, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, they don't have any CWD. Well, you and I both probably know that's probably not the fact. It has to do with the surveillance mechanism that's in place there. And, as a cattle producer, BSE was a hot topic, and it's not a topic anymore because we don't test for it. We don't test for it. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to not find a disease is don't test for it, and I'm not saying supportive of that. I'm just saying, that's one of the challenges you deal with, because when we look at, our adjacent states, and particularly adjacent, Kansas, Illinois, like Illinois doesn't have any, and almost all the way until you get up to Chicago, but I don't know what their surveillance is. I know Iowa's surveillance is very poor compared to what we're doing. But, it's hard to get your head around of what's the best approach to it. And the challenge that I see for Missourians is that the sentiment of deer hunting in the state has changed as far as what people want. You know, they like to harvest mature deer if they can, and in our CWD management, you know, we keep going away from that. And I'm in agreement too, Jason, just so you know. I don't have an answer, like I said, but, you know, in the years that I've been on the commission, we're adding counties every year. We've had additional counties where, you know, somewhere in the landscape, we're going to have all CWD management counties if we continue the same rate. And, you know, we have to trust you guys as scientists in the best decisions, and I really do. You know, I may question it, but it doesn't mean I don't believe you. But, you know, it's so confusing with these adjacent states. You think you guys would all get together and have a consensus, and it's hard to get your head around it. I mean, any input, and I'm not looking for a black and white answer, I just kind of talking and just discussing more than anything, because, you know, we hear the same things from the public, like you hear when you do your landowner forums. You're asking, you know, not everybody's on board. You know, there's some people against, some people for, and you know, sometimes I hear some pretty hot conversations with some of the folks that I deal with in my part of the world. So, I mean, you know, and hillbillies like me, so whatever. But anyway, but I just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on it. Just.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of interactions across state lines, we do a pretty good job of that. We've got a Southeast deer group that meets annually. We've got a Midwest deer group that meets annually, and you know, we all know each other pretty well and don't hesitate to pick up the phone and talk to each other on a regular basis sometimes. And so I think a lot of there's a lot more of a scientific consensus on management tools that have shown promise to be effective. Every state faces different challenges. You know, we're fortunate to have the resources that we do to have the type of surveillance, you know, program that I mentioned and described in the presentation, have the resources to implement targeted culling, which is a resource-intensive practice. And so each state faces their own unique challenges. And so I can understand that as you look across, you know, the map at the various approaches that agencies are taking, you know, I could see how it would make, you know, folks wonder if there was a consensus. But, you know, if you look at the scientific literature in terms of what tools have been shown to be effective at slowing the spread of the disease, it's pretty clear in my opinion.
I don't have wish I had a silver bullet. That'd be nice and simple, but there's not one. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Well, what I would say is that, you know, being proactive in the management of it, I think, has made a difference. And I think at this point, we're going down that path, and we'll continue to go down that path. So applaud you for the efforts. The only other question I had is on your mail surveys. How do you develop the database for who you mail that to?
Yeah, so these would be folks that we would have contacted to see if they were interested in participating in our targeted culling program. So we've been building that database through time as our core areas have expanded. And so it's basically just using that database and contacting those folks.
Makes sense. Okay. If there's no more questions, thanks again, Jason. We appreciate your presentation and your time and dedication to the subject of CWD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Mr. Bond. Yes. Not James, Andrew, right? Okay.
No, that is correct.
Yeah.
It's always been correct. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Director Pauly. I'll be presenting the next two items on your agenda. Good. The FY22 year-end fiscal or financial report and an action item seeking approval for the FY24 executive budget appropriation request for submission to the Office of Administration. First, please turn your attention to the FY22 year-end review. As we discussed in much more detail in the budget workshop yesterday, I'll be summarizing and just giving you the variance report comparing FY22 to 21 and then 22 to the budget expectations. So if you look at the revenue sections, total revenues for FY22 were 8.8% higher than FY21 and in line with mid-year expectations. I'm going to use that phrase in line to mean anything within a 1% variance. The variance from the previous year was mainly from sales tax revenue, which has been quite robust in 2022. I will discuss each revenue category individually. Revenues can be categorized into four main sources. In 22, we received 63% of revenues from sales tax, 17% from permit sales, 15% from federal reimbursements, and 6% from other sources. Conservation sales tax revenues for FY22 were 11% higher than 21 and in line with mid-year budget expectations. The growth in FY22 sales tax compared to 21 well exceeded the 10-year high of 4%. Permit revenues were in line with the previous fiscal year and in line with expectations. The variance in permit sales was below the 10-year average of 2.5%. After the 19.3% increase from FY20 to FY21, sales of monetary hunting and fishing permits have moderated. Total number of monetary hunting and fishing permits sold in FY22 was 89,444, lower than FY21. Federal reimbursements for FY22 were 12.7% higher than 21 and 4.8% below expectations. Some federal claims for reimbursement expected in FY21 were shifted to FY22, resulting in the variance from year to year. The variance from budget is due mainly to delays in federal claims for the Pittman-Robertson grants. Growth in federal reimbursements from FY21 to 22 exceeded the 10-year average of 3.6%. Other revenues for FY22 were 8.2% above FY21 and 7.9% above expectations. Other revenues include sales, rentals, interest, contractual services, donations, insurance reimbursements, settlements, and refunds. The majority of the increase in other revenues is due to timber sales. Growth in FY22 other revenues exceeded the 10-year average of a negative 3.9%. If there are any questions with revenues, I'll turn your attention to the expenditures. Total operating expenditures for FY22 increased 7.5% from FY21 and 2.8% below the mid-year budgeted amount. Operating expenditures include personal services, expenses, and equipment purchases. Growth in FY22 total operating expenditures were above the 10-year annual average of 2.5%. Personal service expenditures for FY22 increased 9% from FY21 and were in line with mid-year budget expectations. Growth in FY22 personal services included the compensation plan changes, health insurance increases, and a significant increase in the Mosier's retirement contribution rates. Changes in FY22 expenditures for personal services were above the 10-year annual average of 2.3%. Expense and equipment expenditures for FY22 increased 5.4% from the previous year and were 5.2% below expectations. Growth in expenditures for FY21 for expense and equipment were above the 10-year annual average of 2.8%. Expenses have increased from the previous year, mainly due to inflation and increased travel. After the pandemic, equipment expenditures have been lower than expected due to supply chain delays attempting to replace heavy equipment and fleet. Total capital expenditures for FY22 were 12.6% below FY21 and 45.6% below the mid-year expectations. Changes in FY22 expenditures for capital improvements were lower than the 10-year average of 2.2%. Capital improvements or capital expenditures include construction projects, repairs, and maintenance, and land conservation and partnerships. Construction expenditures were 11.7% lower than FY '21 and 44.1% below expectations. Delays in construction projects are principally responsible for the variance in capital expenditures. Prolonged vacancies on the design and contracting teams delayed advertising of larger planned projects. Continued supply chain and completion of projects currently under contract. Contractors experience additional difficulties from the wet, cool weather in April and May. Expenditures for land conservation partnerships were 16.8% lower than FY '21 and 52.7% below expectations. Total expenditures for FY '22 increased 5.5% from FY '21 and were 8.6% below the mid-year budgeted amount. Expenditures for FY '22 can be categorized into four main areas: 54% expended for personal services, 38% for expense and equipment, 7% from construction, and 1% from land conservation and partnerships. Final pages in your report provide a summary of the activities in FY '22 that illustrate the interaction between revenues and expenditures. This concludes my remarks on the FY '22 year-end review. If there aren't any questions, I'll move on to the action item. The next item on your agenda, the action item, is requesting approval for the submission of the FY '24 Department Appropriation Request to the Office of Administration by the October 1st deadline. The appropriation requests were discussed in much detail in yesterday's budget workshop, and you have additional detailed information in your advanced materials entitled Fiscal Year FY '24 Budget Request. The action item has been updated based on the discussion from yesterday, and we will update the larger budget book before submitting to the Office of Administration. We request approval to send an appropriation request of $221,886,887 for the fiscal year 2024 operating budget and $62,850,000 in new appropriation requests for capital improvements. The action item also includes approval to allow other agency appropriations authority to the Conservation Commission Fund of $32,702,373. With that, I would ask for approval of the action item.
Commissioners, anybody want to make that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you have the recommendation and appreciate us you discussed. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Good presentation, good work. Okay, Tom, you're next.
Good morning, Commission. I have the next action item for your consideration and appreciate the Commission's discussion yesterday during the workshop as to the Conservation Employees Benefits Plan Board of Trustees recommendation for the upcoming plan year, which, as you know, runs from January through December of 2023. So the board completed our annual review of the plan. We've worked with our insurance consultant, we've worked with our pharmacy benefit manager and all the different folks that help advise the board. And based upon our review, we are recommending Commission approval of the Commission's continued rate of contribution, which is 85% for active employees, and increasing the retiree contribution from up to 35%, which it currently is, to up to 65% beginning in calendar year 2023. The board approved the following changes to the plan and premium structure effective January 1st. A 10% premium increase for both commission and member contributions. Deductible changes for the high deductible plan and out-of-pocket maximum changes for the PPO plan or our traditional plan. and also increases to retiree premium ratios to align with active employee premium ratios. These changes are necessary to address a projected $2.4 million shortfall to the plan in calendar year 2023 due to projected claims exceeding projected revenue. So just to summarize again, Mr. Chairman, we are asking for commission approval of your continued rate of contribution of 85% for active employees and an increase to 65% as the maximum contribution for our retirees. Be happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
Any questions of Tom, commissioners?
Just the only comment, just for clarification for the public record, is on the increasing to 65%, there's a graduation of years of service related to that, and I'd like for you to clarify that for the
Correct.
record.
And that is based upon years of service. So for our folks that retire with 25 years or more of service, they would receive the full 65% contribution from the commission. And for those with 10 years or less, we would start at 50%. When we get to 15 years, it's 55, and then it goes up to 60. So you're correct, there is a graduated scale to that, similar to what we have in place today, but the cap is 35 now versus what we're recommending of 65.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify for
Yes,
the
sir.
record that
Thank you.
it wasn't 65% across the board. It was
Right.
based on years of service. So.
Correct.
Any other questions?
I'd also just make a comment that, I also serve on a hospital board, and, when you look at the cost of medical, we can't count on any decline in the rate of increase for the foreseeable future.
Correct.
And so, as much as we all hate to have to keep increasing rates, not only for the commission, but especially for the people that work for conservation, and all agencies for that matter, there's not a lot of optimism that we're going to be able to control expenses in the foreseeable future. And I wish it were different, but that's just the way it is right now. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to Barry's comments. I mean, as we all know here, there's a lot of discussion on this, but it's also very important that we're, respecting our retirees too. And I think we need to recognize them and how important they have been to the organization.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that, I'd like to have a motion.
Have a motion?
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thanks again, Tom. Thanks for your work. Sue also helped good work on putting this together and making some quick changes to make it happen today. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Commission.
Okay, Jacob.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. I'm going to provide an overview of the report that's in your advanced materials. It's the status of major construction projects. It's agenda item number 9. So, on the first page of the report, under the maintenance and repairs category on line 5, happy to report that at the Commission Conservation Headquarters, the IT building roof replacement project, the design is complete, and we have initiated the bidding process, and the bids are scheduled to be opened on September 22nd. And then on line 9 of your report, at the Young Conservation Area, the Click Property Demolition Project, happy to report that that construction is complete. Under the rehabilitations category, on line 12 at Marie Temp Claire, that project is 25% complete. The ADA waterfowl blind walkway replacement, that is being constructed by the St. Louis Region Infrastructure Maintenance Team. On line 18 at the Northeast Regional Office, where we are today, you will notice that it is nice and cool in here, and that's because we are in the process of replacing the HVAC system. Much of the components have been replaced, but the controls have not been replaced, so it's either on or off. So right now, luckily, it's on, and it's nice and cool in here. Yeah. Well played, sir.
That works.
Hmm?
That's so you keep cooler or get warmer? How's that work?
So the system is either on or off because the controls haven't been replaced yet.
Oh,
There's no controls, right. So the thermostats aren't in place, it can't modulate the temperatures. But that project is 50% complete, contractor's doing really well despite the supply chain issues, and we expect them to be progressing well into the fall. And then on line 21 at Bilby Ranch Lake Conservation Area, the parking lot accessibility improvements, we have open bids, they were favorable, and we are in the process of executing that project, the contract. On page 2 of your report, continuing under the rehabilitations category, at Four Rivers Conservation Area on line 2, the overflow outlets, the bid opening just happened, and so we are in the process of evaluating those bids. And then on line 7 of that second page, St. Louis Urban Office, the office renovation, I am happy to share that that office renovation project is complete. And they are in the process of furnishing it and getting it ready for grand opening. Under the capital improvements category on line 8, the Fountain Grove Conservation Area, I'm happy to share that the contractor is well underway with repairing the sheet pile wall that had failed. They have cut off the piles on the east side of the intake structure. They have installed the setback piles, and they're in the process of installing the whalers and the tie rods. And then in the very near future, they're going to cut off the western side of the wall and start that process. So a lot of good work has been made in recent time. So happy to share that. Let's see, on line 14, Black Island Conservation Area, the road and parking lot improvements. That contractor is just getting underway, and they are 10% complete. And then at Shell Osage, on line 15, the pump station replacement, or the new pump station at Shell Osage. Duck Creek has completed all of their design work. They've provided all their submittals. We are in the process of putting the bid package together and getting ready to advertise that. So in very short order, I'll have firm dates that I'll be able to share with the commission, and we will be able to open bids this fall. And the construction should start next winter, spring timeframe. So good progress there. Line 16 at Perry Range, the range relocation and lead recycling project. I'm happy to report that since these materials have been submitted to the commission, we have granted substantial completion, so that construction is complete now. And we are just working through some final details with area staff before the facility is opened back up to the public. And then on line 18, save the best for last, Jerome Access, the access relocation project. I'm happy to share that the bid opening has been scheduled for October 13th. The project has been advertised, and we already have some good interest in that project, so I'm looking forward to opening bids in October and getting that project underway. The third page of the report is the dashboard for the infrastructure asset management. Just want to highlight a few items for you. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, the total assets is at 56,859. And so the first quarter of this fiscal year to date, there have been 15 additions to the inventory, 13 disposals with a net change in value of $19,008. And in the center panel there, if you look at the HVAC percent past expected life, currently there's 41% of our HVAC assets that are past their expected life. If we were to do nothing in the next 5 years, that would increase to 59%. And so that's why we are doing projects like we are here at the Northeast Regional Office to replace that equipment so that we can get ahead of that. So that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have about my report.
Just a quick question. What is the expected life of an HVAC system?
It depends on the unit, but typically it's 15 to 20 years.
Thank you. Any questions from others?
Nope. I had 2 or 3, so.
Okay.
Now, you skipped over an important one, at least to me, was the Shepherd of the Hills. You said design was complete on
Yes.
that, which I'm happy to see that. So when are we looking at, the bid process, starting on that sort of thing?
So
what's the status of that?
the design is complete. What we are working through now is, because we are building on federal property, we are working through the federal process to get their clearances. So right now they're in a public comment period, specifically with Native tribes. And so when that comment period closes, then we'll be able to apply for the building permits with the city of Branson, since we don't have sovereignty, since we don't own the property. And then we'll be able to advertise this fall.
This fall, then,
Yes.
is what you're anticipating?
Yes.
Okay. The other one on Bennett Springs, there's two areas there. The housing, the residents there, I think there was some discussion with DNR on that, or what's the status of that? Because I think we're supposed to started it by this fall, I thought. If I remember, my memory may not be exactly right, or completed this fall, but anyway, I wonder what the status was with DNR on that.
So the residence design is complete. We are working with DNR State Parks to negotiate an agreement between the two parties on what the areas of responsibility are within that particular state park and hatchery, and then that sets the template for the other state parks. So there's some final details that we're working through to negotiate the format of that agreement and what the areas of responsibility are. So as soon as that agreement is finalized and signed, then we'll be able to advertise that project for bid.
Any idea, time frame on that, Jacob?
I think it would be best for general counsel to respond to that one, because I do not know.
Then the other one we touched on last time was, on the hatchery project.
Yes.
The HDR design, I think we were at the 75% level of completion, but you alluded that there was some issues with that at the last meeting. How have we progressed with that? Where are we at with that?
So they submitted their 75% design earlier in August. We provided comments. We felt that they were not complete. The 75% didn't have all the details that we were looking for. So we provided those comments back to them. They continued working on them, gave us a new submittal. We had several collaboration meetings with the design team and with our hatchery staff to work through those details and those comments. And so now HDR is working on their 95% submittals, and those are scheduled to be delivered to us later in September.
Later in September.
Yep.
So just from a generic question, for our initial timeline, we were anticipating on that, because, the fish production's been an interest to me, and, as you see the project, if it's potentially getting delayed, that's going to have a long-term impact otherwise.
Yes.
So from what we were originally talking on the timeline, are we a month behind, 6 months behind, 12 months behind, or can you give us any insight there?
At this point,
because I think Bruce needs to have that information from a planning standpoint.
And Bruce has been heavily involved in all of the meetings with the consultant, with the review process, so he is well aware of where we're at. But just to respond to your question, at this point, the consultant is still committed to meeting the original timeline, which is completing their design at the end of October. So that's providing us all the submittals, the final documents by the end of
So
October.
we're anticipating 100% design completion for sure by the December meeting is what we should anticipate?
Yes, by the December meeting. Now, with the way the schedule works out, we won't have bids opened by the December meeting. So
that's fine.
When the schedule is set for commission meetings next calendar year, I'll then be able to have a firm date on a bid opening for you.
So then that still puts us within our original timeline
Yes.
of progression on this project,
Yes,
right?
it does.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you,
You're
Jacob.
welcome. Well, I am going to introduce the next speaker, if you
Please.
if you don't mind. So it is my pleasure to introduce Caitlin Cruz, who serves as the Infrastructure Asset and Planning Manager for the Missouri Department of Conservation. Caitlin holds an undergraduate degree from West Virginia University, a Master of Science in Environmental Management from the University of Maryland, and a Master of Business Administration from Texas State University. Prior to her career with MDC, Caitlin applied her Lean Six Sigma Green Belt and ITIL certification in the IT service management sector. She also has work experience with environmental compliance and auditing. In her current role, she leads the team that helps MDC manage infrastructure asset data across all the conservation areas we hold in public trust. Today, Caitlin will present an overview of the proposed infrastructure asset management policy and procedures. Caitlin?
Caitlin, did your parents put you on the 10-year plan in college?
Yeah, it's been a lot of learning. My kids are always asking, you know, how long did you go to college? Well, we don't want to do that.
Well, welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you. So good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commission, Director, Deputies, and everybody here. So today I'm going to share the proposed policy and target condition ratings for the infrastructure asset management and planning with the department. First, I'm going to go over a quick agenda so you have an understanding of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the infrastructure asset management timeline, a brief policy overview, key procedures, and those include target condition ratings, condition assessments, asset indicators. These key procedures are the drivers for our infrastructure asset management efforts. And then we'll wrap up with the next steps. So to start on the timeline, about a decade ago, we really were working through initial implementation of the asset management program. We then led into the initial inventory, initial evaluation, and the final inventory to make up where we are today in our infrastructure portfolio. Now we're really moving forward ahead in our ongoing operations, as well as our ongoing asset updates, including condition assessments. Today, we're going to talk about the policy and procedures. So this is a really pivotal moment for the infrastructure asset management effort. We're very grateful to be here today. We couldn't be where we are without all of the assistance from everybody in the department, all the staff, expertise, and of course the support from the commission. So we really are grateful for that, and we're really excited to talk about where we are today. So to get into the proposed policy and procedures. Here you'll see an outline of the policy and the policy statement. The department infrastructure portfolio will be managed to sustain services in a cost-effective manner over the entire life cycle of individual infrastructure assets. The management will include a comprehensive inventory with geospatial location information, recurring condition assessments, establishment of target condition ratings, and the implementation of a capital asset plan. I've highlighted a few key procedures that we'll discuss today. They include the target condition ratings, the condition assessments, and asset indicators. These key procedures really drive our efforts going forward. So now let's get into the procedures. First, we're going to talk about the target condition ratings. So target condition ratings, to give you an overview, I want to talk about why we need them and what they are. So target condition ratings comply with regulations. They follow industry best practices. They are set at a network level, and they include underlying assets. They also make us accountable for the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB Statement 34. So not only are the target condition ratings really important for department planning, they're also required by law. So how do we develop target condition ratings? Target condition ratings are developed through our initial condition assessment data, asset indicators, which is report out of key data, staff input, as well as the department strategy. So we're really looking at a goal of creating the target condition ratings and projecting based on key data, subject matter expertise, department strategy, and start moving forward so that we have a game plan for how we can manage our infrastructures in the most effective way. So to understand target condition ratings, I think it's really important to understand how we manage our condition assessments and manage our condition ratings within the portfolio. So the purpose of tracking condition assessments is for regulatory compliance, to manage maintenance, to identify safety issues, to improve citizen satisfaction, and for department planning. We identified assets that need to be condition assessed based on several parameters, including being critical to the department, of high value, being planned to replace, and providing key service delivery. The purpose of having these specific parameters is to make sure that we're really investing our time and resources in the most important assets that are critical to the department's efforts moving forward. So I'm going to give you a little overview of our rating scale so you can visualize how we assess the condition. We start here with a 5 being very good. Often these assets are new or like new. 4 is good. 3 is moderate. 2 is poor. And 1 is very poor. So you'll notice there is not a 0 on this rating scale. So when you're looking at an asset that is rated a 2 and especially rated a 1, it often needs to be replaced and it's beyond repair. So to give you a little bit of a visual example, I'm going to show you some load centers here. So here we have an example of Ed Marie Temp Claire. This is a brand new asset. It's rated a 5 in the system, you can see. And then you can go down the scale to a 1 at Brandsville Tower Site. This asset is beyond repair. It's rated a 1, and it has actually now been disposed from our portfolio. Another example will be exterior finish. So you'll see a brand new, again, Perryville District Headquarters. This exterior finish is rated a 5. And at Emmett and Leah Seat Memorial, this worn finish is rated a 2. So for these examples, it was fairly easy to look at the asset and identify what the condition rating would be, but oftentimes that's not the case, which is why we really put a lot of effort into developing a process and documentation to ensure that we're assessing the asset with all the key parameters when you can't just look at an asset and visually know what the rating is going to be. So in order for these condition assessments to be useful, we need to continue collecting data. And that's where the condition assessment cycles come into play. We start here with the initial condition assessments during our initial inventory, and that's what makes up our portfolio today. We move forward to where we are now, which is our first ongoing cycle for collecting condition assessments. And moving forward, every 3 years, we'll have subsequent ongoing cycles. These cycles are really important to make sure that we're continually collecting data and also managing and making sure that we can look at our target condition ratings and really see how everything fits in together. So the third procedure I'm going to talk about is asset indicators. You may not be as familiar with the asset indicators, so I'm going to give you an overview. What is an asset indicator? It's key asset data that we can report out from asset data in our system. It shows the current state of the infrastructure, and it also shows the projected state of the infrastructure if no action is taken in 10 years. You can see that we had an example in the dashboard of the projection in 5 years for the HVAC system, so we're able to use different parameters there, but essentially that's an example of a key indicator. So in order to identify data, we're really looking at the age, and that's the percentage of assets exceeding expected life, and the condition, which is the percentage of assets with a condition rating below a 3. We report out on the age and condition for the most effective evaluation of our portfolio, but there are a lot of opportunities to use different asset indicators to make decisions going forward. So in order to have asset indicators that are actually effective, we need to ensure that we're continually updating our data. We talked a little bit about the cycles and the condition assessments, but we really need to make sure that we're actually updating our infrastructure portfolio, whether it's a new asset being added, modified asset, or disposed asset. In addition, there's a lot of other information we can collect, such as a status update if an asset's out of service or back in service, or other asset updates. So making sure that we're continually collecting data, managing data, make sure that when we report out, we have a really great piece of information that everybody can use. So to visualize the asset indicators, I'm going to use this example decay curve. So you'll see it's a delayed decay curve. It's 50-year asset age, and that would be similar to concrete. So you'll see here we have the rating on one side and the age at the bottom. When we look at our indicators, we're really looking at assets that are within expected life, the end of expected life, or past expected life. We are also looking at assets below a condition rating of 3. So you'll see here this red area where the condition and the asset age intersect is the area that we need to focus our energy. So we can look at these assets and say, these are the assets that are past life. These are the assets that are below a condition rating of 3, and we can actually identify those assets in our report so that we can look at how we can put our resources towards the most effective decisions. So you are familiar with this dial here. We just talked about it during Jacob's presentation. I'm going to use the administrative facilities dial as an example so I can show you how the target condition ratings can be used. So the current rating for the administrative facilities is 4.24. The projected condition rating by network, if no action is taken, in 10 years is 2.25. So we clearly don't want to take no action, but we need a game plan. How do we go from our current to where we want to be when we see this projection here? That's where the target condition ratings come into play. So the target condition ratings, this simulation shows you that we could be at a 3.36. So what we would do is take the asset indicators in the current condition. We could look at all of the assets that we need to take action on, and we can actually affect our portfolio and have a target to get to where we would like to be. So this is a really great tool for planning. It meets the regulatory requirements, and it just helps us have a way to guide us and also measure our success. So using the asset indicators and using the condition assessments to create these target condition ratings is really the key of the policy, and these procedures are really going to help us to move forward. So what are the next steps? Propose the policy. We're done with that now. And so approve policy. We recommend that we would approve policy at the December commission meeting. We would establish the policy upon policy approval, and we would develop the target condition ratings upon policy establishment. So before I go, I just want to recap what we talked about today. You'll see the policy here with our statement and the key procedures. These key procedures really drive the asset management efforts. They help us to set targets, set goals, have a game plan, have an action plan, and have a way to measure our success. So having that ability to use the data, include the subject matter expertise from our valuable staff, as well as look at the way the department wants to head with their strategy, with our strategy, I think this is really going to help us to move forward. We're really, really grateful to be in this place. We know that we could not have done it without the staff. We couldn't have done it without the support of the commission. Moving into our ongoing efforts is really going to help us to get to where we want to be. And the use of the target condition ratings is going to drive us there. So again, thank you, and any questions?
Commissioners, questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Just so I understand, all of these assets are going to be in our GIS system.
So we already have the asset portfolio. We're looking at, and we have location data on the assets, and we're looking to set a target condition rating for those assets already in our ViewWorks asset management system.
And then also reminding me, I think when we started this, we had a consultant assist us. Are they still involved, or will they be involved?
We don't have consultants on right now assisting us in the collection. We always have an open mind to how we can move forward and use the resources in the best way possible. Right now, our team is managing the work.
Okay. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation. Thanks. Okay. Let's move on to the Realty Committee.
Jennifer. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. I have the next 4 items on the agenda, and they are for action. The first is requesting the Commission's approval to purchase approximately 100 acres in Shelby County. This will be in addition to our Honeywell Lake Conservation Area. This tract is partially forested with approximately 27 acres of forest land and a 5-acre lake. Purchasing this property would achieve certain water quality goals laid out in the Honeywell Lake Conservation Area Management and Lake Plans. These plans specifically point out the benefits of obtaining additional property in the Honeywell Lake watershed to improve water quality and protect the water source for our Honeywell Lake hatchery. With that, Mr. Chairman, I request your approval of the action item.
Yes. Could I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Move on, Jennifer.
Very good. Next is recommendation for approval to purchase approximately 80 acres in Phelps County. This tract is entirely forested and includes 1,400 feet of intermittent dry fork creek, 3 miles upstream from the upper Merrimack. So you can see how the 80 acres there would help us protect that watershed. It also includes the potential for us to provide additional high-quality habitat for some imperiled bat species there. With that, I request your approval of the request.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Move on, Jennifer.
Next is request for approval to purchase approximately 128 acres in Platte County as an addition to Kinzora Conservation Area. This tract, too, is forested with approximately 128 acres of forested land and wetlands and includes 8,000 feet of riparian corridor and stream frontage on the Platte River. The tract is in close proximity to Kansas City and just 20 miles from the Kansas City International Airport, so it does give us an opportunity to expand conservation lands and the ability to connect people to nature in a very highly populated area. With that, I request your approval.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next.
The last item I am presenting for your consideration is one that I'm very, very excited about. We have been working with a very good partner, the Nature Conservancy, for many, many years to not only bring this recommendation forward, but to manage this particular piece of property. The property we are asking you to consider today consists of, it's a total of 5,805 acres in both Carter and Shannon counties. It has 5,720 acres of forest, 35 acres of glades, 50 acres of fen, 13,000 feet along the west side of Current River, 8,640 feet of frontage on both sides of Chilton Creek, 2,000 feet of frontage on both sides of Kelly Creek, 9,200 feet of frontage on both sides of Roderick Creek, and has 4 caves. This property lies in several conservation opportunity areas, and again, because of the coordinated efforts that we have had with the Nature Conservancy, and we do have Holly Neal here today, who is the Conservation Policy Coordinator, I think. She's here with us today to kind of support us in this request for action. And as I've said, we're very excited about this acquisition, not only because of the conservation potential, but it also gives us the opportunity to honor Commissioner Emeritus Don Bedell, because with this recommended action, we are also asking that the Commission consider and approve naming this particular tract the Don C. Bedell Unit of Peck Ranch Conservation Area. So it's a recommendation for action to acquire and a recommendation to name as well.
Thank you. I understand Mr. Bedell is on the WebEx, so I hope he's hearing all this. That's good to know, and
I can hear him.
You can hear him.
I can hear him.
He can hear you and see you and see all of us. So very nice and a very great tribute to a great man.
Indeed, he was instrumental in the elk restoration program that we have there that started at Peck Ranch Conservation Area, and I think it's very, very fitting that we would name this particular tract in honor of his work.
Who would like the honor of making that motion? Okay, we have two. All right. We have a motion. We have a couple motions, and we actually have a couple seconds, I think, too. So, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got one more action item. Oh, hey, Brad. Hey, buddy. Good to see you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. All right, some timber.
Director, Deputy Director, I've got an action item, it's item number 15 on your list today. As you know, the department maintains an active forest management program on conservation areas using a variety of practices, including forest thinning, the use of controlled fire, tree planting, commercial harvest of timber. In keeping with established procedures with the commission, I do have this one action item for your consideration associated with the sale of forest products on our Angeline Conservation Area in Shannon County. Again, this would be item 15 on your agenda. If approved, this sale will improve overall forest health and diversity by removing overstocked, stressed, and mature trees that are starting to decline. The harvest will basically improve overall forest health and long-term sustainability, increasing sunlight to the forest floor to increase our oak and pine regeneration as well as native grasses and forbs. So with that, I request approval to advertise and sell an estimated 1,196,478 board feet of timber from 562 acres of compartment 19 on the Angeline Conservation Area in Shannon County.
Okay. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We have one more opportunity for Mike to come forward. We don't want to let this time pass, so.
Ties are something you don't wear when you retire.
Oh, I completely understand that.
So you probably will not be needing this tie anymore.
Oh, absolutely not. Anymore, ever again.
We do have some cake to cut in celebration of both Bill and Mike's retirement, and that adjourns our meeting today. So thank you very much.